been wonderful, always wonderful to be back in the university in business. I also taught for 15 years across the street at Kathmandu College of Management. I also did some of the classes in the School of Continuing Education or Education in UCL. I also did a couple of modules into the Natural Resource Management course when it was in Nagan, something like that. So Kathmandu University is another new. I also taught in the Kathmandu School of Media School. So I'm not new to Kathmandu University. Wherever students, faculty, colleagues, researchers want me to come speak, share my ideas, share my anxieties, I always gladly do that. When the Purnaji was approaching me, I was traveling quite a bit. I came last night from a long and arduous plane flight, but I couldn't say no because it's important to talk to a community of scholars, students, researchers. Not only to share my ideas, but to learn from them. It's a two-way process. So I'm very glad I'm here today. When Purnaji approached me, and I thought that what makes me eligible to speak on this subject, because I'm not teaching anywhere, I'm not researching. I'm associated with the Social Science Baha, Social Science Baha initiated program on Alliance for Social Dialogue, which allowed me last 15, 16 years to travel wide and breadth of the country, talk to communities, people, what their needs are. Many ask me why Alliance for Dialogue. Dialogue is a very important part of this democracy process. In order to be heard, in order to be listened, in order to be heard, you need to listen. In terms of codifying the knowledges and things, that's from the dialogue. So I greatly value conversation, dialogue, so therefore I gladly accepted this. The other, maybe Purnaji must have thought that I have briefly walked in the, not briefly, my entire productive life of 20s to 30s to mid-30s. I walked in the transitions. Strangely, I was reflecting all the day, that during the 1990s, I was called upon to serve the then Prime Minister G.P. Goyala as his Principal Secretary. Private Secretary began as a private secretary, then emerged as a Principal Secretary. What I call that transition of 1990, democratic transitions. Coming of liberal rights, coming of various Nepal's commitment to international convention and covenants, coming up of civil society in our country, opening of political parties, and that was basically, I call it democratic transition. And fortunately, I also called upon to serve with the President of Nepal when Nepal became Republic, first president. So I call it Republic transition. First was a democratic transition, it was a multi-party transition. Second was a Republican transition. And you may be wondering why I am differentiating between Republican transition and democratic transition. Because in a political theory, there is a great long history of the idea of a republicanism and idea of party politics. In Republican idea, the genesis of Republican idea came from France, where state matter, state came. Many people thought that doing away with the king in 2006-07 was the idea of a republican. But the idea of a republic was state is a paramount. That's what Republican meant. When French Revolution, which founded the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and the famous statement by Napoleon Bonaparte when he said that the crown was lying on the gutter and I picked up with the tip of my sword and put it on my head. Because crown was lying. Because there need to be created an authority after revolutionary revolution. There was also counter-revolution in the French Revolution. But the idea was that the commoner's son, although he behaved like an emperor afterwards, but the state was created. The state was paramount. To this day, when you hear about the France, you hear about the state being a very monolith, state being very penetrative, state caring, not recognizing anybody except citizens. There's no, of course, we live in a very much of an identity politics. France is also going through various processes, migrations and all kind of thing. Now the French citizen is much more diversified. the citizen which France does not recognize, but the idea of a citizenry, global citizenry. So therefore, Republican is, and that's why when you reflect back in 2006-7 and look into the kind of discourse that all ills of Nepali state, of all ills of Nepali society, development, underdevelopment, was charged against to the Nepali state, historical Nepali state, which is supposed to be, and unfortunately time always stopped in Nepal in 256 years or so. So state was kind of blamed for everything what is happening in our country at that time, but also there was an imagination that state has to do everything. You remember the Maoist revolution and then asking the state to take every responsibility, everything was claimed towards the state. The conception of political or construction of political was revolved around the idea of a state. Therefore, we hear about state restructuring. Anything that happens, we blame the state. Therefore, we wanted to do restructure state, whatever, or make it more democratic, whatever. But ultimately, our expectation also lies in those states. So, what happened during that period was very interesting, and I think it's very important for public policy students to understand. But nobody was owning the state. Everybody was claiming the state. Everybody was expecting from the state, but nobody was owning the state. That's maybe because I know you have come from very different background, therefore it may be difficult to understand that political notion. Expecting and disowning. That's why disengagement of the state has become very, very paramount, a very important character of our present day time in Nepal. The earlier 1990 revolution was not that concerned about the state. It was concerned about the people, citizens, their right to organize, various other constitutional provisions. So this is a very evolving thought in my thinking, that how do I differentiate the time of 1990s, which is again someone who has been engaged, and when I arrived at the moment of 1990, I was, although young, but exiled, jailed, that kind of political activist background. By 2006, when I arrived in the political scene, I was already served in the government in and out for many years, served in the executive political office, but states were changing. In a theoretical sense, in a practical sense, because this precisely of this paradox, claiming from the state and disowning the state was everywhere and the state was nowhere. That was the basically, yes. So my theoretical questioning and grappling, the issue that I'm grappling of late is that how do we understand these two transitions which have shaped most of our life around this table. So that's one part. This is where I come from in terms of my dilemma, my concerns. Anything that I talk about public policy would come from that immediate understanding. But this being a very academic place, so I want to situate something theoretically. I'll try it. I'm not a student of, I did earn the degree in political science, but the public, when I hear about the public policy, as the Dean was mentioning earlier, when we were growing up, public administration was in the fashion. Everybody did political science and public administration. And suddenly, why did public policy came into the picture? And where does this public policy has resonance with the paradox of the political revolution in Nepal? That's one part. I'll be briefly touching on that. The second part, I'll be talking about that we hear a lot about policy these days. Policy has been always a domain of the state in our imagination, but every firm and organization also has policies. So what does that policy mean? For example, in an open market system, big corporations with their policy also influence larger public. But the people who are influenced by the market are basically consumers. So question comes to mind, and now I put a paradox, 3-4 paradox before you. When politics was imagined some thousands, millennia ago, it was imagined as a community, political community, because the idea of Aristotelian state was that all human beings are social animals. By social, he means political animals, because the epistemological understanding of political was to have a community. You can't live alone. Therefore, you created a community. And that community, within certain territory, became political community. and it has a language, it has a history, culture, then same political community also had cultural dimension, so cultural community. To become a part of community was always a human essence, nobody wanted to be left alone, nobody wanted to, there are in the religious history, there are aesthetics, there are sages who leave the community, go to the jungle, but they create their own community there. So idea of a community was always associated with the idea of a political. Why politics came? Because it's precisely to manage your relationship, your community, in terms of resources. They didn't define the resources the way we define it right now, but it has some changes. Then slowly idea of a state emerged. In a political theory, since this is political foundations that we're talking about, whenever you are asked or we are asked to think ourselves beyond the state, we have arrived in such a situation after thousands of history that we cannot imagine ourselves beyond the state. We always consider we are part of some state or territory, something like that. State has become a very much important element of our everyday life. There are people who study political science and the theoretical discipline do distinguish between nation and state, nation and community, but in a popular understanding, we consider that country, state, nation are to be similar. There are theoretical distinctions, I don't want to go detail, but state has become very important. The point is that we cannot imagine ourselves out of state. So therefore, statelessness has become quite a big issue. At the same time, the question emerged that people lived in a community or setting or environment, ecology, whatever, through their interactions, what we call present-day market. Exchange of goods and services between individuals is considered to be the genesis of the market. So market is another community. Okay? So what I'm saying is that there was a natural community, there was a constructed community out of the need and necessity with state political community emerged. There's another community that's a market. But in present day, what we have seen that all these communities supposed to be evolved in an independent sphere, now interacting to create the kind of overlapping spheres. We cannot expect market without state. We cannot, now market is supposed to be, as Adam Smith famously said, with the invisible hand, it operates on its own setting, but we cannot imagine market without the state of the market. I'll give you a small illustration. When unification of Tribhuwan University began, I think it's a value of a travel for some reading that I infer that idea. You go to all mid-hills, from Chainpur to Halanga in the Bhutan, to the Jajarpur, all hill towns look same. They have the same architecture, the market, the settlement, towns. And I think it's started with the state building process during the Tribhuwan and beyond. And then you find most of the Nepal communities that settle on those hill towns are from Bhakta. And their purpose was to sell goods and services to the Gorkhali Empire, soldiers, administrators, and local people. So market evolved in these townships. Therefore, Sainpur had a similar, what you call, architectural style, like a Tanchen Palpa, or Bandipur for that matter. All north-south the route trade routes with the Tibet and the east-west hill towns, you see market and state in one place. Look at the Bhadgaon Topi that was popularized by Bhadgaon, but was an important element of the tunic of the Nepal army or the Gorkha army at that time. Main functions of the Newar traders in these towns were to sell paper, the Nepali kagas, the glass paper, then topi, masalandas, and ration, supplying ration to the state officials residing in this. So state and the market intertwined. Therefore, those who control the state also control the market, because market was rudimentary at this stage. Because Nepal's evolution of market was a very slow, state-sponsored market. Therefore, when in 1990, when we entered into democracy, economic liberalization, the great things were coming in, it was very difficult for Nepal's so-called the private sector market turning from red the रातो फिताले बाँधेको बही खाताबाट accounting system मा जानु. That was the basic cultural thing that I observed. That when that was introduced in 1990, there was a great resistance and still a resistance because you have a different kinds of accounting, plural accounting system, and state wanted to have a uniform accounting system. So what I'm saying that in Nepal's political transition, if you look into the Nepal political transition also, it's a basically microcosm of what happened all over the world when market, state, and communities interact. Another great element of 1990, because for me that's a major reference point, was that the emergence of the independent, what you call, communities organizing around interests and ideas. There have been always a local communities which use the natural communities, which use, those were using similar watershed, similar forest resources, but newer forms of rights were emerging. Therefore, women as a mothers group, consumer groups, various interest-based communities also emerged in the 1990s. Before that, we have a traditional interest groups like Bhutis and others. Those manage their own affairs, irrigation in the villages, and water system in the towns, rituals, festivals in the sort of thing. But by 1990, because of the state understanding of registering everything everywhere, everything was came under the state's control because they wanted to be registered. I never heard before the Bhuti to be registered, but after 1990 we found that various organizations, various Kulo Samiti pani registered because state was becoming more important because it was monopolizing the resources. Okay. Before the irrigation department came in the civilizational term, I'm talking long haul of it. Before the irrigation department came, there was irrigation. Before the forestry department came, people were managing their forestry, even managing the animals and the natural resources and flora and fauna, because you don't do hunting in a particular mating season. That was therefore, what I'm saying is that as we evolve to be a quote-unquote modern, and I'm very problematic, I have a problem with the understanding of modern in that sense, that as we evolve what we are today, managing these spheres, we need to differentiate between in this, I'm basically confusing in a sense that will make you to think. So my aim today is to talk about big issues, small micro and macro issues so that the question emerges in your mind, and then I look forward to question answer session. So these sphere, keeping these mind sphere, keeping our political transition in mind, and then where does public came into the picture? When does in Nepali discursive climate or discursive setting, public came to the picture? Remember, when in 2007 when King Tribhuwan came back from Delhi, and his statement, "Mera pyara raiti gairi ke yathochit," raiti subject. There he did recognize Sadhu Mahajan Samthake yathochit. Sadhu Mahajans were always there because there's always a philosophical background that in a religious cosmological sense, king, renouncer, and the family, household, maintain the cosmological relationship in the everyday life. Because you need to have somebody to pay the tax, therefore king, and to pose a conscience to everyday householder and the king, you have an idea of a renouncer. Therefore, in the Goraknath, Nath Sampradaya, various in a Buddhist literature, so it's come from the Buddhist reading. Why do we keep giving alms to Buddhist monks every morning, every day? Because they are our conscience keeper. King always ruled, people pay taxes, people pay all kinds of services to the state, therefore the order. So similar sense, in modern time I see the role of a monk, role of a thing, of a kind of overlapping community that is emerging as a civil society. State also need their help, people also need their help, organizational elements. So that's another element. So when did public became a public? Idea of people I can understand. More than one or two become a people. More than one individual or two people. And it is a very lexiographic understanding. One or two, three, then you say people. Then you don't distinguish the people in a distance you'll say, you can even call them a crowd, like a difference between tree and jungle. There are many trees in the jungle, there are one tree, two trees, and then it becomes a jungle. So that's another. Where does public came into the picture? Public in our part of the world came from the British Empire. The first time that I looked into some of the archival materials and found that the public was used to describe from the perspective of what? Service delivery, maintaining law and order, public disturbance. It never came through public delivery service, but it came from the legal framework of maintaining order in the society. Therefore, law and order problem in colonial India, which is basically police was facing around the constabulary system, where they said that the greatest challenge to state is what? Public order. Public was a colorless. By the way of governance, public was also desegregated, like a communal lines, Muslim, Hindus, indigenous, that's right. So public in a British imperial understanding came from that. But where does our present day public come from? As I said, state is a political community. The basic variable, the unit of analysis in the state is, there are two basically. If it is a democracy, if it is a participatory idea of a citizen Congress. You don't have a citizen in the market, you don't have a citizenship in the community, be it a cultural community or other forms of community. The community is idea, unit of analysis in the community is a membership. Member. You either become a member of a boutique or member of a club, you don't become citizen of a club. So the idea of a citizen is always associated with the political community, which is, and then the highest form of political community, as Aristotle said, is state. Wherever there is a state, if it is democratic state, which is a participatory, where the role of voice, participation is there, then you become what? In other forms of community, where you take services, or contribute in the services, or take services, you become a member. Club, Lions Club member, that club member, club of the Friday discussion club, that club, this club. You are not a citizen there. Your unit of analysis must be. In a market, you also don't citizen and the member. You become consumer. Either you become producer, consumer, seller, so different motion. So as market grew and market become very strong and started influencing the state, I think the public policy, and I want to distinguish between what is a public policy and what is citizens policy. Citizens policy. For example, a public policy of a state in a modern time can involve their citizen and outsiders also. I'm making it a very generic, so that all the simple question always raise big question. I don't want to make it complicated. For example, you have a public house. If you say that only people with a Nepali ID card, that means Nepali citizen, will use this, what it becomes? Citizens policy? But bus are for everybody. Market recognizes the person with the money, person who can afford it. So market cannot say limit its services or its dynamics or exchanges only to the citizen. Citizen is a very much what you call relationship with your political community and state. So as market evolved and started influencing the larger populations and the citizenry, then idea of public policy. Therefore, it is the latest intervention from the Western capitals. Public policy came from where? United States basically. Earlier it was a public administration, therefore wherever you turn the textbook and then look into the history of public policy, it doesn't go beyond 1930s. The famous Woodrow Wilson's presidential speech at the American Political Science at the turn of century, of the 19th century, It was 1901 or something like that. When he talked about he was a very pacifist American president who was unfortunately defeated. He couldn't take through the proposal to the Congress, the setting up the League of Nations after the war. He was also the first president of American Political Science Association. So his writing, and that you can go to the gesture, and the first issue of American Political Science, you will find a very interesting story or interesting way to look into the public administration and idea of the public. Then Aaron Wilaski and others all came, and in their mind, it was not the government policy alone, but how in a larger society which was shaped by market-state interaction. So, irrigation, if you take, is a community policy. When irrigation department came, and with irrigation department what came? Builders came, suppliers came, different actors came, different models came. Then what became? The small communitarian affairs turned into the public affairs. It was not limited to states alone. Otherwise, it's a citizens' policy basically. It's a policy made for citizens. So that's a new way of looking at it. I may be a very tentative and parsimonious argument that I'm making here, I know. There are a lot of pitfalls there, there are a lot of challenges there. But looking at my own transition, how idea of a public emerged in Nepal, how idea of a citizenship is evolving in Nepal. And with this clamor for various multiple identities, from sexual minorities to indigenous people, all have claims on the state at the same time it has claim on the market. Therefore, in this tussles, in this overlapping tussle, we find that even if government passes a policy of, for example, in the roads, we will have disability-friendly bus services. But states' inability to influence that decision through proper implementation is precisely there are different stakeholders, and market being one of the major stakeholders, how profitable it is to bring. Therefore, whenever there is a special idea of a public policy comes in, then the idea of a subsidy comes in. And then with the idea of a subsidy, state becomes the farm. So the idea of a market is to allow the open, transparent negotiations of goods and services, but when the state comes in, it has to protect its citizens. It has to protect not the public, it has to protect the citizens, which is very much stratified in a lot of different ways. So policy and politics has a big relationship. Generally, when we think of a policy, why it is not implemented, why some policies are this or that, we tend to forget the politics behind policies. Generally, sometimes we become very naive to think that the good policies are always implemented. And I ask myself a question, if it is a good policy, it has to be implemented. And I don't want to go detail, that would be a separate part, how public policy is formulated in Nepal, legislative, and basically the influence of the market, influence of the contractors in the public policy, that's a different ball game. But what I'm saying that if we imagine a good policy, it has to always think how it is implemented. And I think generally the politics of a different sphere in implementing that particular policy becomes a very difficult issue because we are thinking state in a different way, we are thinking market in a different way, we are thinking community in a different way. Bring all this together in the same pace is a challenge of the politics. Therefore, politics of the day and the policies of the day are not separate. You can all imagine, you can sit down in a quiet library and design a good policy, but it is devoid of the good understanding of politics, you will not be able to do that. So let me give you a brief example why that first came to my mind. Long back, I was a principal secretary. If something happens, we immediately, the easiest way to do is to take out a statement and say that we recognize this thing. So while draft was going, as a principal secretary, I was responsible to look into the draft that goes out to the other officials. I wanted to insert the point that because of this accident, government will now onward regulate the school bus system. There will be a task force or something, because I didn't have what kind of thing. Because I remember growing up in Hong Kong, Malaya when I was growing up, and later in US, I always saw the yellow bus with the thing. The bus drivers are always considered to be widely trained. They knew how to handle these things. And when school bus would stop, the other traffic would stay some meters behind, not even nearby. So I was vague understanding it, but I didn't know why all buses in the US look yellow. If you happen to travel to the United States, all buses are yellow. Well, it's a very federal country with a lot of diversity, a lot of state. The state have their own power to frame the laws, but all buses are yellow because all Americans can travel all over the America. Therefore, if they saw the yellow bus, that's a school bus. The color came from that understanding. So I wanted to insert something like that. I was vague, but I didn't know. But I said something has to be informed. There was a great tussle, and then at the 8 o'clock there was a cabinet meeting. I wanted Prime Minister to take, in Nepal it's a very strange, we call it democracy, cabinet system, but there's a provision called Tharo Prasthaf. So direct proposal. And in a Prime Minister system, Prime Minister is the first among equal. He doesn't need cabinet to take a decision, because if he is alone, he can hold the cabinet. Because ministers are, traditionally, theoretically also, ministers are at the wishes of the Prime Minister. And I was wondering recently, when everybody was wish-washed as a policy decision in the cabinet, that cannot be challenged. A country where Prime Minister can take a proposal directly without consulting the ministries, but without doing what you call regular tippani and all those kind of things, and then we are talking about giving immunity to cabinet. That's a very different story. But somehow, cabinet secretary all came, and finally a statement came out, and there was no flush or regulating school bus system. And then I looked into my own understanding, where does it come from? And I have been speaking quite a lot. If you have heard my speaking or interventions in the public, I call it Masan Vairagi. When somebody dies, we go to the ghat and say that, oh, console him or her, life is like this, one has to go one day, life is short, think about the future, all kind of thing. But when you come back after burning out near and dear, when you come to the Gaushala, we forget everything. As the odor of the smell of the corpse burning fades away, we back to become normal, and we forget. Then we do all kind of daily mundane things. We forget about past life, post life, whatever that life may be. So public policy in Nepal is riddled with what? Masan Vairagya. Something happens, we tend to zoom around, but next day, why it is that? One of the important elements of any public policy is that what you learn from your success and failure. What do you learn from the collective memory? As Weber says, records are important element under his 6 elements of his bureaucracy. He said the record keeping is important. It is a record what makes a state strong. But our kind of partial amnesia, a poor record keeping system, we don't know what happened when. Therefore, our public policy also suffered with not only archival information, as Dr. Casey was mentioning, evidence. To generate evidence, you have to have an empirical foundations. To have an empirical foundation, you have to know what has happened and what will likely to happen. You never know about the future, but likely to happen. In that sense, teaching and learning of social science has become quite problematic in this country. We are very much trained about everything, but we are not looking into the idea of memory in our public life. Therefore, interdisciplinary conversation and dialogue. Therefore, policy study is also interdisciplinary. Don't think that if you study market, you're done. Don't think that if you study community, you're done. Don't think that you have to study the other framework. You have to understand people at large. People and public are two different things. Citizen and public are other different things. So I think you need a composite understanding of what it is at the stake that you wanted to propose and prescribe. So, in that sense, psychology also becomes a very important. I didn't talk about memory, forgetting in Nepal's public policy, or public idea of public in that sense. Because I have seen reinventing again and again same wheel in the name of policies in this country. Because much of our policy is externally driven by the external aid, donor agencies, consultants. And consultants have tendency to develop perpetual crisis. Present is perpetuating the present, and the present is a crisis. Therefore, in Prime Minister's office and the various offices, I have seen one issue being repeatedly researched again and again, propose similar things, and I have seen a lot of participate in the research. So one has to be very careful. As a public policy student, I was emphasizing a kind of methodological angle to that. First part was a philosophical, political part. Second question is narrating you my experience of the Prime Minister's office was giving you a case study, why you forget and sort of thing. Third was a methodological look into. It has to be interdisciplinary. That's why I'm very happy when I look into your scheme of things. There are so many things that auxiliary modules, optional modules that would really help. But in order to stay afloat in the market of ideas in the market of other things also, one has to be very relevant. And I think we generally don't talk about idea of relevancy, whether in your analysis, whether your institutional relevancy, why we need all institutions, people, leadership, everything, how much relevant with the time. I think another loose factor in our study of policy is that we cannot arrest the time the way we used to arrest the time earlier. For example, when I read Harari, I did the review in the separate party, and that gave me a fascinating engagement. Earlier revolutions were long-term revolutions. For example, we don't know when agricultural revolution began, sub-millennia. It is still there. We see very big innovation in agriculture, but we still see people are plowing with the wool and other things. Using the manual, we have seen technological development in the agriculture. Industrial revolution, we have seen when it started, kind of a revolutionary moment that the industrial revolution brought in with in England, in the Western countries, modernization began with the industrial revolution. But suddenly, in last 20 years, things have turning so fast. I remember when first mobile came, I was in a PM office. I happened to hold that huge, heavy Israeli mobile. Within 10 years, we were having, now only the professionals carry the big cameras, everybody carries this small mobile. Radio has become relatively absolute. Time and distance has become compressed into one place. It only took 20 years, the kind of development that we see. But earlier, agriculture policy, if you remember, agriculture practices, culture, they are there for hundreds of years with a similar trends, similar techniques. The only question that agriculture changed was because of the productivity. They were forced to think agriculture, shift in the agricultural practice because you need to feed more people because population was growing up. Otherwise, agriculture would have remained, and now we will still think that GMO is bad thing, fertilizers are bad thing. We are turning back, pushing us back to the country. But in other way, development of science and technology has pushed forward time and space, and having public policy, their choices and preferences in this push forward time is a very uncertain business. Therefore, one has to be very alert. With these rumblings, because I was traveling, I didn't make my note on the planes overnight, but I think I have made some points to think you. Thank you very much.
On behalf of everyone, we'd like to thank our